Welcome back to the channel, and this one is just going to be me chatting a little bit, so similar to the top 32 predictions and analysis video. This one is actually sort of a bit of a response to my favorite podcast, which is the guys over at Pack Mentality. So Brendan, Michael and Hamish doing their competitive Malifaux sort of focused podcast, which I'm a big fan of. And so they just did their breakdown of the top 32 sort of after the fact. And originally I was just going to chat on their Discord and give some feedback, but I realized they'd opened up enough topics where I was like, shit, no, I actually kind of want to chat about that. So here we are. So therefore, if you want to, I would highly recommend going and having a listen to that before listening to this. Now, it's a pretty long episode. They were having a good old chat. So, a reasonable amount of this video is going to be responding to the stuff that they say from 1 hour, 23 and 40 seconds in. So that last sort of 15, 20 minutes is largely what I'm going to be talking about. So if you want to just catch that bit and you don't have time to catch the rest, then feel free to pause this, listen to that, and then come back here. Or if you just want to get it from context or just listen to my thoughts, then crack on, no worries. Right. 1 second, I think I may have just found a tick on my dog. No, we're good. So, what order do we want to do this in? Well, first of all, thank you very much, guys, for your kind words regarding the recordings and stuff, and for moving people in the direction of this channel. And again, I'll send you all back right over there to Pack Mentality on Spotify, and they've also got their Discord server, so if you need a link to that, just give me a shout, or maybe I'll put it in the description, but I'm horrible at remembering that stuff. So much love, thank you very much. Then a tiny correction, which will probably just make you feel uncomfortable, which was that you were saying Joro Gummo's come in for 2 turns. They come in for 3 turns, I'm afraid, gents. 3 turns. They come in with 2 flicker. At the end of that turn, they go down to 1 flicker, and then they get to do another one, and then they go down to 0 flicker, then they get to do another one, and then they die. And they don't die at the end of the activation, they die at the end of the turn. So unless I'm horribly mistaken, let me just double check that in my head. So they come in with 2, end of turn go down to 1, end of turn go down to 0, then they get to go again. Yeah. I'm afraid it's a good old 3-turn Joragummo, and that's if Amanjaku doesn't get anywhere near them and bonus them. So, and that is of course assuming that they are summoned within 3 inches of 2 enemy models, which is not difficult, as you rightly pointed out. So that was just a tiny correction there, but mainly just because it amuses me to upset people with Asami. Predictions then. So coming back to the video that I did talking about my predictions and then what has actually transpired. So I had, let me see if I can bring it up on my screen. You won't be able to see it right now, but that's okay. Here we go. So I had going through Radek and Andre from Group A, and Andre smashed it. No surprise to me, but a pretty sizable surprise to me was that Radek shit the bed. So he's been playing a different system recently, apparently, and you could really see. So Radek, definitely one of the best players in the world for the last couple of years, if not longer, I don't know, but certainly as long as I've been playing the game, he's been one of the most respected players, and then turned up and just sort of seemingly dropped a couple of crews that he fancied playing rather than any thought had gone into. I mean, I might be totally wrong. He may have spent ages prepping and then, had a plan, and that plan, just didn't survive a punch to the face or something. But the impression as someone just like coming in and having a look was he dropped what he fancied playing, lost pretty miserably to players that were on form, and got completely railed out of the event. not at all what I was expecting. And Izzy was the player that picked up the slack there and in fact won the group. So beat Andre as well. That does surprise me. With Neverborn nonetheless, and he's been recently playing Thunder. So that's very impressive, especially in that group with those two players. Hamish Hamdog let me down. I had him going through over QT in Group B along with Billy. Billy was doubting himself, but I wasn't having any of it, and sure enough, he went through. But QT managed to take it over Hamish. I saw some of those games. I think 2 of them are on my channel, as it was mentioned. And yeah, there was definitely room to get through there, and I think that with a little bit. With not much change, that could have easily been a correct prediction. So I certainly don't regret that prediction, and a shame that he didn't make it. But it means we do get to see some more rezzers anyway in the top 16. So that's all good. I'm pretty sure I was right with Michael and Hagen in Group C. Quicket didn't quite make it, and Nikita Pola put up a good performance actually for him. I think I chatted with him a little bit, and he was pleased with what he managed, and obviously disappointed he didn't manage that little bit extra to really sort of have a go at the top 16 there. But next year, one to look out for if he continues to improve. Ollie and Landon, that really wasn't a huge shock. They're both excellent players and both on Thunders, which at the moment is definitely a big tick in the green winning column. My group E, so I had myself going through, but I mean, if I didn't, that'd be a bit embarrassing. And I had Legislac going through, and he proceeded to table me with one model, so it was looking good, and then he suddenly managed to lose to both of the other players, and that was a bit surprising because they were some of the lesser experienced players within the top 32, up and coming for sure, but not quite the experience, especially within the MWS, as Legislac, who's been around for a good while and played a lot of games against a lot of amazing players. And he was on his home turf. He was on Guild, and he didn't quite make it, so I was a bit surprised about that. Not really sure what happened there. He really is a very good player. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, had an off day. He did mention in our game that he wasn't really feeling it, and that he felt he sort of just got carried by the crutch rider, and so maybe that was it. Maybe he just wasn't feeling it that week. People don't like to talk about real life stuff when we're all enjoying playing around with war dollies, right? But sometimes if something's in your head, you can't be focused on Malifaux, and nor should you be, right? So. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying it's a possibility, and there's all sorts of other things that happen in life that can make that the case. Escalax and Axelst going through, not a shocker for me because they're both top-notch Danish players and play against each other pretty frequently, and are on Outcasts and Explorers, who are both in a reasonably good spot at the moment, up against Reese and Rosemarus, both Bio players. Bio not at all in a bad spot at the minute, compared to what they've been previously, because I mean, I would have said not that long ago I'd have put Bio right down near the bottom, but they're up a little bit, but they weren't able to take the games off the player 1 and player 2 category there, so that prediction was fine. Then we had a very, very interesting group in Group G. So we had Cackle, Jeremy Posner, Ben Jules, and SEV. I didn't know much about SEV, and I didn't put much stock in him making it out that group with the other names involved, but I underestimated Ben. So Ben came through with flying colours with his guild, and I think all three of Cackle, Jeremy, and Ben worked very hard, put a lot of thought into the event, and there was a lot of Lucius going around across various factions. And while they didn't necessarily all bring what they thought to be the top meta picks, they were sort of coming in with the idea of let's play some Lucius, or let's play a bit of this and a bit of that, and do we want to be Neverborn or Guild, or this sort of thought process. Once they'd committed, that I know for a fact that they were all really sort of thinking hard and giving the event the respect it deserved. So for Ben to come out of that one on top was a cool thing to see. And while I personally really enjoy playing against Jeremy, I recently had the pleasure of playing against Ben as well. So so I think the event as a whole doesn't, wouldn't have suffered either way. I think they're both very, very pleasant guys and excellent players of a similar style and faction. So very, very thoughtful players. So it should be really cool to see that moving forwards, and we'll see how that gets on. The last one, which was a surprise for me, was Group H, and that's because Dominic Joker Boy got knocked. He seemed to be a bit distracted. Evidence of that being that he declared the wrong list for one of his games. So there was this list that he was playing with Shenlong with Amanozako out of keyword, which I thought was really, really interesting. Figuring out where to play Amanozako out of keyword has been something that's been in the back of my mind, and then suddenly he rocks it out, and I was thinking, oh, fantastic! That's that's exactly what I was thinking. I wonder what he's going to do with it. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, into Nexus. I'm not sure about that. And then proceeded to not do very well at all. And then I asked him, like, what was the thought there? He said the thought there was that was my crew for round 2, and I've just dropped it in the wrong round by mistake. I was like, I see. Okay. So again, real life possibly distracting away from hardcore focus there. But Joker Boy's an excellent player, and I certainly wouldn't doubt him. But in this case, it looks like he had a rough one. And it was Bobber who took advantage this time. So we had Nathan on his Explorers, made it through, and then Bobber on his Bio joining the fray. So that's cool to see. Nice to see surprises happening, because if we always knew what was going to go on, it wouldn't be a lot of fun. So that brings us into the top 16. And we get to the championship bracket. Now this I can probably put up on the screen. So let's try and do it live. We're doing that there, and then switch. Hey. So we have Izzy versus Bobber, myself versus Landon or Pope. We have Ben versus QTP Arogi, Geist versus Axelst. Then over here, Nathan and Andre, Ollie and Handful of Snakes, Billy and Cackle, and Esquilax and Grogdog. So let's pop in some predictions. Izzy and Bobber. Izzy's been on a tear recently. He's doing very well. Bobber is a very solid bio, but he's pretty limited to Zip and Ma as far as I know. I don't know a whole lot about him, so that might be entirely wrong. I mean, as a player, he was one of the organisers of the Cartographers Cup, so it was great to get the chance to meet him and see him having a great time in the after party and stuff like that. But I didn't see him. I haven't played across the table from him yet, I don't think. Generally speaking, Izzy has gone back to Thunders by the looks of it. Yeah, Thunders versus Bio. Izzy prefers Shenlong a lot more than he does Asami, but the fact that he's got Asami will push Bobber onto Ma, most likely, and then Shenlong does rather well into both Ma and potentially Zip. So I would say Izzy, likely to come through that one. Myself against Landon or Pope was an interesting little situation, because it's pretty rare that it would matter, but we knew our opponents before we declared faction, and we were allowed to switch faction between the top 32 and the top 16. And so Landon, knowing that he was coming into what would have been a Thunder's mirror and potentially an Asami mirror, and that's something that we had practiced fairly recently, and it didn't go very well for his... He had something in mind to deal with Asami. He tried it out. He wasn't really pleased with the results. And so in the end, knowing that in order to progress at all, he had to get through what was most likely an Asami player, myself, he decided to switch to Guild. And I still don't know the matchup yet. He decided against someone who's well known for prepping pretty heavily to wait till the last minute to declare Masters. He did offer to, if I promised not to prep particularly hard, then he would declare earlier, but I promised to prep like a motherfucker, so he maintained that he would wait till the last minute, and reasonably so. Who do I think is going to win that? I think commenting on that before the game is likely to have me sort of being very cagey with what I say. I'm already doing that now. Because obviously I want to go into that one with the best chance. What I will say is that while I was certainly... see what I mean? I relish Thunder's Mirrors. I really like playing Thunder's Mirrors because then both players have full information, and I feel like in that case I do well. I tend to lose games where I play against models and things and strategies that I haven't seen or that I don't know. When I know what's going on, I tend to do very, very well. And so obviously playing against Thunders makes me very happy. I think that Asami's in an incredibly good place at the moment for... well, of course she is. She's busted as fuck. But she's in particularly good place for a Thunder's Mirror because they don't have amazing answers, as many factions do not, to Asami other than Asami herself. And if you want to play an Asami's Mirror against me, I've got more Asami games than anyone probably, and so I'm more than comfortable with doing that. And so I think his choice to switch to Guild was... really interesting and probably a good one for our game. Of course, now he's stuck with Guild for the rest of the event, so if he does win, he then has to go and beat everybody else with Guild as well. Interesting choice. But if you lose the first game, you're out anyway, so who gives a fuck? The downside is, and I have to sort of try and remind myself of this, while his last-minute switch does sort of catch me off guard and means I have to scramble to think, oh, I was mentally ready to play Thunder's Mirrors. I was thinking, in fact, I'd already built the crew that I was going to play I'd built the crew that I was going to play against the 2-3 masters that I thought he was going to play. So I was that prepared for that. And then suddenly he's thrown this spanner in the works. Good idea. But I have to remind myself that if I suddenly just decide, if I was going into an event thinking, yep, here we go, I'm going to play my Thunders, I've got my Asami, I've got my McCabe, I've got my Lin, they're all ready to go. Shen's always an option. So yeah, excellent. And then I meet something where I'm like, oh shit, I can't play those. I'd better go and play my Maxine. I'm going to go and play Explorers. To pretend that I would be as ready or as on form with my second faction with very, very little notice. And I know that Landon hasn't got a whole lot of time to train, so it's not like he's putting 15 games of Guild in this week. It's just not happening. So I have to try and remind myself that while it has certainly cost me something, I think it's cost him something as well. And I'm hoping that my familiarity and comfort with Thunders will carry me through. So we will see. Ben versus Cutie Pierogi. Well, I think Rezzers are struggling a little bit at the moment. Guild seem to be on a bit of a tear. Ben, I know for a fact, is putting an enormous amount of thought and effort into the game. And I don't know how much Cutie is able to put in. Again, maybe real life concerns are putting a bit of strain on it. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he's training like a motherfucker. But I'm actually going to give it to Ben. Yeah, I think he's got a really solid shot there, and if he doesn't win, I think it's going to be really close. Then we've got Geist and Axelst, battle of the outcasts usually, but Geist has gone Thunders, sold his soul, and rightfully so. It's the top 16 after all. So if he plays a Sammy, then I think he should have an excellent shot. I haven't found anything in Outcasts that particularly bothers my Asami. I would expect Axelst to try Victoria's 1 at that stage on a wedge raid. So it's wedge raid for round 1, and I would expect him to just go in and kill. I've played the matchup a bunch of times, and I understand if you don't play Asami correctly, and I won't, go into that. But if you play it correctly, then Vix really shouldn't be able to win. Not really. And I don't think much of Outcasts can win against Asami played correctly. Of course you can fuck up, but Asami 2 in particular really just puts pay to that. So, I would say Geist probably wins because he picked Thunders. Well done. Outcasts just struggle with that, and that's unfortunate for Axel. So that's a sad draw. If Geist somehow mind fucks himself and doesn't pick a semi, then then Axel's chances go way the hell up, because they've got a lot of matchups on wedge that can be a bit more impressive. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll look forward to seeing the game either way. In fact, that goes for all of these games. I don't think there's a single one of these games that I'm not interested to see. So Nathan versus Andre has already happened, so I can't, go ahead and give some wonderful revelation or prediction. If you don't want to know the results of that, then, skip the next 30 seconds. All right, so that's chances for you to do that. So now Andre absolutely smashed Nathan, so put him in the top wedge, which was the most awful deployment by far. He chose Ivan 2, and because Andre's list has a really good ability to ignore auras and basically just ignore everything, it's an incredibly oppressive Predator 2 list. It's very, very strong. And so on paper, I couldn't really see a way that Ivan was going to fight back. And then it was much, much worse than that, because he basically just did not flip weak on damage ever. So everything was moderate and above, and it's a very, very mod spiky list. So that was a very quick smashing, unfortunately for Nathan. All right. So Andre through, and I would very, very much expect him to go through all the way to the finals. Then we have Ollie versus Handful of Snakes. So Handful managed to make it through from the 32 to the 16 with a margin of victory of -5, which is quite impressive of itself. But I think it was 1-1-1 or something like that, and just happened to make it through my group, in fact, because Legislat was defeated roundly. So we have another bio in the top 16. Happy news for Gremlin fans. However, he's going up against Ollie, who's probably the best player in the UK. I don't think that's too much of a outlier statement or whatever, or an exaggeration. And he is also on Thunders, so that should be a real struggle. Bio, in terms of Mar2, do have answers to a Sami, if that's what Ollie chooses to go for. But first of all, there's nothing forcing him to go a Sami into Bio specifically. And second of all, Handful did try Mar2 against me, and obviously didn't have a ton of experience on Mar2 compared to some of his other stuff like Mar1 and Zip. And I think Ollie would be able to clean that one anyway. So Ollie heavily favoured there, but well done to Handful for getting this far, and hopefully he'll gain some more experience and then come back next year and show us all how it's done. Billy versus Cackle is another one which has already been played, and again, if you want to avoid spoilers, then just skip the next 10 seconds. So Cackle took it down. I haven't seen it. Cackle's making a real effort to hide all of his games. Yeah, whatever. So we can't really get interested in them. So then we move on to Esquilax and Grogdog. So we have the age-old Teal Mirror. Michael has spoken about this one and said that he really struggles to beat Esquilax. So fair enough. I have played against both of them, and I honestly think it should be more even than that in terms of results, I feel. But, he feels how he feels. I think Michael's biggest weakness weakness in that is going in thinking he's going to lose. So if he went in thinking I'm going to win and I'm going to pick the best thing I possibly can, and then here's how I'm going to beat him with that, and then I'll make him answer my questions, then I think he'd have a much higher chance to win. But when you listen to Pack Mentality, or you listen to him chatting about it, then the tone is more, right, I'm probably going to lose, so what could I take in that would be a bit fun or that you wouldn't expect, and then how can I answer his questions? And I think that's a really good way to lose games. So as a result, I would put money on Esquilax, but I think if he went in there and went, I'm having this, then actually it would be an incredibly close game. If not a Michael win. So I'll put Esquilax going through, but I think it's a shame that it's not a closer run thing. So those are my predictions for the top 16. And that is that. Now, I mentioned at the start that we were actually going to talk about the Pack Mentality podcast, and we've been here for 25 minutes and I haven't actually addressed what they were talking about. I just sort of got swept into the top 16 stuff. So apologies if you went away, listened to the episode, and then came back and then I'm like, well, why the fuck did I listen to that? You've not even talked about it. Well, that's what we'll come on to now. So that last segment of the episode was talking about the format of the top 32, top 16, and potential formats going forward into following years. And I thought that was really interesting and a really good topic to raise. So one person, doesn't matter who, said at one stage that they were, this isn't on the episode, this is sort of just in general, said that they were disappointed that we were playing a top 32 and we should have been playing a top 16 only, because, and it was sort of alluding to the caliber of player in that top 32, wasn't world class, and there were too many mistakes and too many rules errors and things like that. And that it maybe sort of lowered the prestige, and now I'm paraphrasing, lowered the prestige of the event. Well, I disagree, and this is me sort of on-ramping to my comments on their format suggestions. I disagree that the top 32 was a mistake, or that we'd be better off with just a top 16, and I realize that I'm putting words in people's mouths now. That's not necessarily what was said, but you'll listen to the episode, you'll get what I mean. And here's why. So first of all, I made it into the top 32 last year, which was sort of like the end of the year of my first year of play, or was it second year? I can't remember how long. It's all getting a bit cloudy. But basically, I just about, because I'd been improving quickly during the year and made it up and had some good results, I managed to just about qualify for the top 32. And that allowed me to then compete with those guys. And first of all, that was a hell of an experience, one that I'm very grateful for. And I think that all the players that I've spoken to who made it into the top 32, even if they didn't have aspirations of the top 16, even if they were knocked out immediately, really appreciated and enjoyed the opportunity to be part of that experience and to give themselves something to aim for and to give themselves hands-on experience against top players, so that they get that hype, they get that excitement, they get a bit of screen time, as it were, get a bit of practice having the spotlight shone on their games, on their choices, on their play. Because then, when you come back next year and you have another go and you're a bit more prepared for it, maybe that all gives you a better chance and it's a bit more exciting and you know what you're getting yourself in for. And I wouldn't have made it into the top 16 on that first year that I qualified. I wouldn't have made it. But I did make it into the top 32. And then from there, I made it all the way to the semi-finals and ended up losing to Plague. So I think you've not got to. I encourage giving more players a chance to have a go. Evidence for that is, first of all, the conversations that I've had with those players, but it's also the fact that 4 from the 16, so 1 in 4 players that are in the top 16 came from the bottom 16. They didn't come from the top 16, they came from the bottom 16. So 1 in 4, 25%, any other way that you want to say the same fucking thing, came from that bottom bracket. And it happened, and I was the same. It happened the previous year, it happened this year, and I think it would happen next year. You're always going to have a chance that someone is up and coming, or someone has a really good day, or someone who was previously very much a top 16 player and qualified as such has now dropped off. They've stopped playing, they're not warmed up, they're on another system, they've got a new kid, whatever it is that's drawing them out of the top 16 is happening. And I think to have the top 32 in existence, or to have more than just the top 16 in existence, is a good thing. Also, I think it was Hamish that was talking about the existence of content. So I really love the MWS. I find that Vassal and the online community in general, including the Swamp Friends that was mentioned, are my local meta now. So yes, I have a local meta, but they've become really recently focused upon trying to build that local meta with new players, and that's not really my thing, so I've taken a step back from that. But as a result, I get a lot fewer games with my locals, and they couldn't play that many games before anyway, so a lot of my games, a lot of my focus, a lot of my interaction with the Malifaux world is all revolving around the MWS and things which spin off from that, like the Drayson Cup that I organise. That would never have happened without the MWS in the first place. So I'll try to remember to plug that at the end, actually. Anyway, I've been derailed. Fuck. Online communities, and one of the things that really gets you into online communities, in my opinion, is being able to see games on YouTube, is to get excited, to be able to see these big events happening and going, oh, you know, that guy played Zoraida. I've been thinking about Zoraida. I had a list. I wonder what he played. Oh, he played that. Fucking hell. And so being able to watch all these games, and I realized that not all of them are tip top, right? They're not like finals material, every single one. But that's exciting, right? Because you get to see, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be a smash or, I mean, I upload a lot of those games myself, and I don't handpick them. I don't record a load more games and only pick the best ones. I record as many as I can, and I put them out, all of them. Unless the sound goes completely to shit or something and you can't actually hear the game, I upload everything I record, pretty much. I don't remember. I mean, I don't want to say it and then be wrong, but I'm pretty confident I upload everything, which means you never know what's going to happen. You get to watch a hopefully interesting game. And the good news is, I mean, I personally watch all Malifaux content at 2x speed. So you power through, you skip, you know, whatever you want to, and if you can see a game's just being crushed, like, oh, he's completely fucked here, he's done, you just close the video. Nothing forces you to watch it to the end, right? So I think this is a really long-winded way of saying the Top 32 provides a lot of videos, that provides a lot of awareness and visibility for the MWS. That brings more people in. Recently, I think a lot of new faces, new names have been popping in. Some of those faces and names have been doing really well for themselves, and I think that's amazing, and I think that the Top 32 adds to that. So, with that said, the guys on Pack Mentality were offering up some alternatives. For example, a top 16, which is comprised of a top 12, followed by another 16 players playing a double elim format, competing for those last 4 spots. I think that is a perfectly reasonable way of doing it, because you maintain the prestige of a top 16. You give those bottom 16 of the top 32. You give them the chance to compete and to get into the top 16, which is exactly what kind of happened with the top 32, right? We said we had 4 players from 16 came from the bottom 32. That's exactly, you're basically almost forcing exactly that to happen, and you're giving people that chance to get a taste for it and to progress, and then you know, come and smash the top 16 guys out of the park. Fantastic. And you're still creating a bunch of content, so there would still be a bunch of games, still be, you know, I personally would be perfectly happy to try and record those games, including the ones that were qualifying, and of course the ones that were the top 12. So I think that's a really interesting and good way of doing it. The other suggestion was best of 3. Ooh. All right, so best of 3s. I can't remember exactly the numbers that were suggested in terms of whether we should be playing. I think 6 weeks was mentioned, so best of 3s over a 6 weeks. And was that still with pods? I guess it must have been with pods, right? So pods, best of 3s. And then, of course, being the MWS committee and being the New Zealand guys, it immediately turned into how many crazy formats can we slam into one event? So, best of 3, but then it should be Scorpius jumping on one leg while in a sleeping bag with some makeup on. It's like, well, okay, calm the fuck down, point 1. But point 2 is it is amazing and really, really good to see that the people who are involved in the organization of these events are still so excited about them. So when even if the direction that excitement takes pisses me off no end, I'm still really, really happy to see how excited they get, how fired up they get, and like the ideas start flowing, and immediately it's like, yeah, but we could do this, we could do that. And then also there's a little bit of thought behind it. It's like, but if we did that, what would be the consequence? Good. Let's think about that shit. Let's not just piss ideas up a wall and see what drips. Like, I am pleased to see a little bit of thought goes into it. In terms of how would that look with faction balance, because that's a really important thing to think about. It's like, we want to do this where we can play all 17 fucking masters, all titles. It's like, right, but like certain factions are going to do much better with that than others. So I'm really glad that was considered. Best of 3. So there was a mentioning of you play best of 3, and then once you finish with that game, that master can't be played anymore. I think often in other games, like in video games, for example, it's if you win with that master, you can't play it anymore. So I think if you go in with your specific master and you lose, very often you would then be allowed to play that master again. It's sort of like as soon as you win, you can't play that master again. And that's something I think I would prefer personally, but I realize that you guys, and again, this is more directed towards the Peck Mentality guys, are so incredibly obsessed with seeing as many masters as possible in every possible event, that you'd disagree and you'd actually rather have a master removed even if you lose with it. But I think at least I'm going to put that forward as a suggestion that if you're doing best of 3s with masters removed, it should be upon winning with them, not upon just playing with them. In general, there was a lot of hatred. Some of it deserved, some not, for one-tricking. And it's an interesting conversation. So if you look at the top 16 as an example, you've got some prolific one-trick players, myself on Asami, Carnage, Andre on Predator 2, and Esquilax is very well known for his McCabe 2, for example. Anyone else that's particularly one-tricky? Not so much. The rest sort of bounce around a little bit more. And I totally understand that you guys don't like that. That you would prefer, and that you feel it's a better expression of skill to see someone play multiple masters well. And I get that, and I don't necessarily disagree. And I also appreciate that you express that view as a view, not that it is a truth that you are, giving to the world. You say this is how we feel, and this is how we view it, and you accept that people like myself go a different way, and you're okay with that. Not okay with it in the sense that I think you'd rather I didn't do it, but I think you express that in a very respectful way, and I really appreciate that. In the same way, I absolutely respect people's dislike of one-tricking, because I understand that variety is the spice of life for a lot of people, and a lot more so than it is for me. I enjoy the nuance of Malifaux so much that even when I'm playing 60 games of Asami in a couple of months, I can still find so many differences, so many improvements, so many little tweaks, and I'm playing against so much different stuff and different people and different play styles, and people even trying the same stuff but with a different approach, that I find that enough. It's just simply, that's my explanation, is that for me that is enough to really enjoy it and for me to feel like I'm getting variety. But is that why I'm playing Asami largely in the top championship? No, it's because she's the strongest thing in Thunders right now, and I think that anyone playing the game to try and win the world championship should be playing what they believe to be the strongest thing. Therefore, I don't think it's the event where you should be putting constraints on what people can play. I think this is the best in the world competing for that top spot. Let them do it. Don't say, here's some hoops you need to jump through that we've designed because we like it. That's the best I can do. And I do see the counter arguments And not only do I see them, I respect them. I just don't agree with them. That's it. Yeah. Is there any more that I can say? Can I make that any clearer before we wrap this one up? Because that's pretty much all I had on it. Changing formats, making things best of 3, making things restricted, making things bans, making things anything. It doesn't balance the game. It just moves the goalposts. It just says, right, well, we've decided we don't like what's currently very strong in this format, and so we're going to change the format with the hope that other things are very strong, and so people will play stuff that we haven't seen before, and we enjoy that. I love seeing, like, oh wow, someone's played Yoko 1 in a tournament game. Like, holy shit, that's incredibly interesting to me because it just doesn't happen. But the majority of the time what happens is you watch them and you go, yeah, that's why they don't play Yoko 1 in a tournament. Yeah. And if that happens a lot, then it's just not that good. Like, it's interesting because it's got a novelty value, because it just happens once every now and then, and the rest of the time people play strong shit well. They know it well because they play it all the time, and so you get to see good play with solid fundamentals and good knowledge of the synergies within the keyword because they've got reps, rather than people who just go, I'm just going to play a bit of this fucking Cooper 2 today, and then after the game the YouTube comments are, well, you forgot this and you didn't use that and this was incorrect and the aura on that isn't right, and it's like, I who the fuck cares? Like, yeah, you played something new, but I'm not impressed and I'm not asked. And that's not directed at anyone specifically. I hope no one's played any Cooper 2 recently, because it's going to make it sound like I was talking about that game. I chose Cooper 2 specifically because I can't think of a game where he's been played recently. But that's my feeling on that topic. And I think this video has been long enough for me rambling on. So I hope that you guys continue to enjoy the games. I appreciate all the comments that I get on the videos that are thanks for the recordings and so on. It does take a bit of effort, but I feel like it's really, really worth it. I love getting those games out there. I continue to love the MWS and the guys running things. I hope to God I managed to win this game on Friday and am able to compete through after that. So who would my next opponent be? It would be either Ben, QT, Geist, or Axelst. And based on my prediction, it would be Ben versus Geist. And that's Guild versus Thunders, which is actually at the moment like a bit more even than a lot of the other matchups. Guild actually do have some answers into Thunders, where some factions really struggle, like Arcanists and Rezzers and Outcasts. I think they all really struggle into Asami. And that's assuming that Geist is playing Asami at all. He might not be, but he probably is. So I'd say Geist wins game 1, and then Geist versus Ben or QT. I'd say Geist probably wins that. So I'd say if I beat Landon, then I'm probably playing against Izzy. Thunder's Mirror, I back myself to win that. I like that. So then I hope I win that. So then it would be myself versus Geist. And again, I'm just going to continue to back myself all the way. Why the hell wouldn't I? So then that's me into the championship. And I think it'll be Andre coming from the other side. And then I think he's going to slap me with his Predita and I'm going to be sad. So that's my long-term prediction. There you go. I hope you enjoy the top 32 content if you've not managed to catch up with it yet. And the top 16 content, which will be coming soon. And this little chat as well. If you want to have a chat about the future years top 32 format, as in the discussion that I sort of was triggered to make this video by, and then just did a little bit on now, then I'd recommend going over to the Pack Mentality podcast Discord server. You can find it on their podcast. It'll be linked everywhere, I'm certain. So yeah, jump over there and join the discussion on that one. I'm sure they and I would be happy to hear your thoughts, especially even especially if you are not a competitor. So if you're not a competitor, tell me what you think the format should be. As someone who is not involved and doesn't have to play it, what do you think? I'm really genuinely interested, and if you are a competitor, equally interested, but for different reasons. So yeah, come over, join the chat. Love to hear from you. Last little thing is a plug for Drayson Cup. So I run a Vassal event that is vaguely similar to the MWS in that we follow all the MWS rulings and FAQs and erratas and all that sort of stuff. But I will always run it as a 50 Soulstone single master competitive event with no other formats added in at all. It will always be just pure, clean Malifaux with no fucking around. And at the moment, my intention is to keep it as a 3-round event. So it generally runs at the end of one MWS event and then through to roughly when the next one starts. So it's sort of off-season training, if you will. It's a ranked event. If you care about Longshanks stats or whatever, so just so you know, it is a ranked event, and it's sort of for people with a competitive mindset. So expect people to be coming in with fairly sweaty lists, but usually it'll be people sort of coming up with new ideas or new twists on try hard kind of stuff that they're planning to bring to the next MWS event, or maybe they're just looking to refresh their palette after a recent MWS event. So as long as you're okay with that, you don't have to be a top level player to join. There's no restriction on joining whatsoever, except for the player count, which I think I've capped at 32 because I want to keep the rounds at 3, and I think more than 32 in a 3-round event, it starts to get very tiebreakery, so no good. If you want to join that event, I've sort of hijacked the constructive criticism Discord. So if you search for the event, it's called Drayson Cup number 3, I think we're on, over on Longshanks. You can find the event there. It's already up and running. I think we've got 4 spots left, and the next one will start, I think it starts on, I want to say 2nd of December, but I should have checked this out in advance. But yeah, it starts basically the day that the MWS event finishes, and it runs through to just before Christmas. So do be aware of that the last week, I'm aware that it is just before Christmas, but hopefully you can get, find time for one game during your pre-Christmas timing and enjoy the event and get 3 rounds in with some excellent players. So come and join us there. If you need any information on that, if you can't find the links, if you can't find the Discord servers, whatever it is, just always reach out and get in touch with me. I'll be happy to help out. All the best, guys. Take care, and I will see you for the next one.